Welcome back, my dear delegates. Yesterday we discussed about the basics of measures of scale. Then we discussed about the descriptive statistics, measures of descriptive statistics like measures of central tendency, measures of variability, measures of skewness. Then few important tools of advanced statistics like comparison tools, association tools, and descriptive tools. In comparison, we discussed about chi-square distribution, t-distribution, and analysis of variance. Further, I'll take up today, after understanding the descriptive statistics, let's move on to inferential statistics. Before actually we move on to inferential statistics, it is necessary to understand few terminologies here, basic concepts. As a researcher, if I have to collect the data, so what I will do is, normally I will select a sample from the population. So population is collection of all individuals or objects or items which are under study. It is normally denoted by capital N. If I'm interested in understanding about the population, but it would be practically not viable to enumerate the data, gather the data from all the individuals who are present in the population. So what I will do is, I will just select a part of it or a portion of it for my study to understand the objectives and solutions for the objectives. By studying that sample, I can make inferences about the population. The sample is just a part of the population and it is denoted by small n. Another important concept is variable. So variable is, as the name indicates, any characteristic of an individual or an object which is going to vary, that we call it as variable. We have qualitative variables, quantitative variables. We also have dependent variables, independent variables for our study. Parameter is another term wherein we are discussing about the characteristic of a population. So parameter is basically, it is a characteristic of a population. It can be mean of the population. It can be a standard deviation of the population, which are denoted by small mu, mean, small, and the sigma, that is for standard deviation. Similarly, we also have statistic. It is the characteristic of a sample which we are choosing from the population. So sample will, we calculate the mean of the sample, we calculate the standard deviation of the sample, and we use these character statistic for drawing inferences about the population. So now, what is population? What is sample? How this interference, statistical interference, are just they related to each other. That is shown in this diagram, pictorial diagram. When the population is too large, we draw a sample from the population, then we collect the data from that sample. The data which we are collecting, then we organize the data, and then we do an analysis of the data, what we have. Then finally, we draw the inference about which is applicable to the population from which we have chosen the sample. This is a pictorial explanation about the population sample and how the statistical inference is made. Now, how do you organize a raw data set? It is essential to understand this before actually we move into the testing of hypothesis. So raw data, we normally have a raw data which we have collected. Categorical or a qualitative data is one side, and we segregate the quantitative data, that's another side. And if it is a category quality data, we make the frequency tables. The quantitative data, we divide into different classes. Then we make the frequency table and we use it for data analysis. Now a data set is there, graphical representation of a data set, categorical data, qualitative data, basic statistical tools, that bar diagram, pie charts, and then for quantitative data set, histograms, pie diagrams, and time plot. Now, how do you summarize this raw data set on a quantitative variable? Once summarizing a raw data set on a quantitative variable, you study the central tendency of that data set, and also you study the variability or dispersion of the data set as per our descriptive statistics. And once then locate your central value using the measures like mode, median, and mean. And similarly for variability, you quantify the disparity or the variability that exists in the data entries using the measures of range, standard deviation, variance, and quartile deviation. This is what we summarize a quantitative variable, the data set that we have with us. Sampling techniques. So once, how do you select the sample, which is very critical in research? We have two: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling, we have simple random sampling, stratified sampling, systematic random sampling, and cluster sampling. In non-probability sampling, we have convenience sampling, quota sampling, judgmental sampling, and snowball sampling. So in probability sampling, we have a the opportunity of reducing the error, data error or a bias error or a sample error. Okay, but in non-probability sampling, it will be a bit difficult to reduce the errors. So these are the important two sections of sampling techniques. Then if you start comparing, what is that method that I have to choose for my study, depending upon the kind of sample unit that I have to choose from the population for the study. So if you compare simple random sampling, very most likely used by the researchers, and the advantage is you have a minimum knowledge about the population. You are not exactly sure about your population, and it's very easy to analyze the data and compute the error. There are, of course, disadvantages are there. Does not use when you have a knowledge about the population, you know exactly what is the population, your population for the study, and larger errors for a same sample size than with stratified sampling. Then stratified sampling, where you're going to divide your population into groups and randomly you select the subsamples from each group. So you divide your sample into strata, and then you start picking up the samples from those selected or divided strata. Very cost is high and moderately used by the researchers. And advantage is adequate representation of all the groups in the sample, because you are picking the sample units from all the subdivided strata from your sample. So it requires an accurate information, because strata, when you are actually dividing, you should know what is your population, what are your the respondents or the sample units, they are there in the population, profile of your population. Then it is very easy for you to make the strata or the groups. Systematic sampling, natural ordering, order of sampling frame, selects an arbitrary starting point, and very moderate cost but moderately used. Simple to draw a sample. Systematic. If the sampling interval is related to a periodic ordering of the population, then it might introduce an increased variability. You might find a bit of variability, that is advantage in the systematic. Then cluster sampling, wherein you are selecting the sampling units at a random, then complete the observations of all the units in the group. Very low cost, frequently used, whether the clusters are geographically defined, you can define the clusters and require a listing of all the clusters, but of individuals only within that clusters that what we are choosing. There are disadvantages like larger error for comparable size than the other probability samples. Then comparison of non-probability sampling methods, the convenience sampling, where researcher mostly uses the convenient sample, very economical, extensively used. Okay. There will be a variability and bias estimates which cannot be measured, and we do not have a control over it because it's a non-probability sampling method. Judgmental method, wherein you take the help of expert or experienced researcher, and then you select the sample to fulfill a purpose. Then there will be a bias because of the expert's belief. Then quota sampling, wherein you, a researcher, you classify the population on a particular parameter or a property, then you determine the proportion of the sample from each class. This is also very extensively used. Again, we have a bias possibility, probability in while classifying the subjects. Then snowball, initial respondents are selected and additional respondents are obtained by getting the references from the initial responses. So your sample size keeps increasing. Very useful in locating members of a rare population. Okay, when you are very difficult for you to identify your your respondents from the population, maybe a rare kind of a population. So high bias because the sample units are not independent. So what are the, now move on to the stages in data analysis. You distribute the questionnaire, you collect the data, then you edit the data, you do the coding of the data, then you enter the data into the system, data entry, then you do a data analysis. You also check for the errors and you verify about the validity and reliability of the data. So data analysis, 4 types of analysis: descriptive analysis, univariate analysis, bivariate analysis, and multivariate analysis. It's an interpretation. Then finally, you do a interpretation. So now let's come to statistical interference. The two division in this, one is theory of estimation and testing of hypothesis. In theory of estimation, we have a point estimation and interval estimation. Testing of hypothesis, 2 types of test: parametric test and non-parametric test. Parametric test we use when you have a distribution which is normal in nature, normality kind of a data, we use a parametric test. When your data, you are not sure of the normality of your data, then you use non-parametric tests. Then we have measurement of scales. See, measurement is the process of assigning numbers to your objects or observations. Very easy to assign in respect of the properties for some objects, like it could be weight, height, etc. But it is relatively difficult in respect of like motivation, ability to stand and stress, which are not quantifiable or quantitatively can be defined. So in social science, scaling is the process of measuring or ordering the entities with respect to attributes, quantitative attributes or traits. For example, scaling technique might involve estimating individual level of extraversion or perceived what is the quality of the product. So certain methods of scaling permit estimation of these magnitudes on a continuum, while other methods provide only for relatively ordering of the entities. We have comparative scaling and non-comparative scaling. With comparative scaling, you are comparing the different items, different brands. Example, preference of Pepsi or Coke, kind of a questions when you actually throw to your respondents, you use a comparative scaling. In non-comparative scaling, normally item is independently measured on one particular brand on some parameters or the attributes of that brand. For example, how do you feel about the Coke? Wherein you are not comparing that, you're only giving your responses about the brand like Coke. So measurement of scales, in the even previous session, I have explained you these measurement of scales. Still, I will go through this with some examples. Nominal, ordinal, and then scales. We have interval scales and ratio scales. So I have given you nominal is a classification of data like male, female, wherein your arbitrary labels are given to 0 and 1. Ordinal, normally you give a preferences, labels like 0, 1, 2, Likert scale, degree of satisfaction, degree of responsiveness, restaurant ratings, political parties ratings and all that. Then interval, we have differences to make like temperature, dates, ratio. It takes each and every number including natural zero, that's height, weight, age, length, or a few examples of these measurement of scales. Now this is the same thing. Ratio, the examples, interval examples, ordinal examples, and nominal examples. Now possible, what are the operations we can do with these data? Nominal, we can count the data. Ordinal, greater than or less than kind of an operation. Interval, you can do addition and subtraction of scale values. In ratio, you do multiplication, division of scale values. These are the permissible arithmetic operations. Appropriate statistics. Now, for each this kind of measurement of scales, what is the kind of data tools, statistical data tools that we can use? For nominal data, we use a crosstabs, chi-square, pi, Cramer's contingency, and non-parametric test also we use here, like chi-square test, run test, binomial number, and cochrane test. For ordinal data, frequency, wherein median, interquartile range, non-parametric test, we use a Kolmogorov, Smirnov, sign test, Wilcoxon test, okay, Mann-Whitney test, Kruskal values test. These are the tests we use for ordinal kind of a data. Then interval kind of a data, mean, standard deviation, t-test, ANOVA, MANOVA, factor analysis, regression, multiple correlation kind of tools are used for interval kind of a data. Then for ratios, we use coefficient of variation. These are appropriate tools which we are going to use for different kinds of scales of measurement. So a few examples of comparative scaling technique. We have a pairwise comparison scale wherein you are going to respondent was given the 2 items at a time and is been asked to select any one of them on some particular attribute. So you start comparing these two on a comparison scale. Then hash model scaling, wherein respondents interact with items and comparisons are inferred between these items from the responses to obtain the scale values. Then rank order scale, wherein you are going to assign the rank to them from 1 to n. For example, you show advertisement to the respondents and ask them to rank that advertisement on the parameter of 1 to 10. Constant sum scale, where respondent is given a constant sum of money or a script or a credits or the points and asked to allocate these items. It's an ordinal level of a technique. Then Bogart's social distance scale, wherein measures the degree to which a person is willing to associate with particular class or a particular type of a people. It asked how willing the respondent is to make various associations. This is Bogart's social distance scale. Then Q-sort scale, wherein items, the 140 items are sorted out in the groups based on the rank order. So that's the scale. Guttman scale, this is a procedure to determine whether a set of items can be rank ordered on a one-dimensional scale, or it utilizes the intensity structure among the several indicators of a particular variable, wherein statements are listed in order of the importance and the respondents have been asked to rank these statements. Non-comparative scale, continuous rating scale, Likert scale, which is a very widely used scale from strongly agree to the strongly disagree kind of a thing. Then we have a phrase completion scale where respondents are asked to complete these phrases on particular 11-point response, okay, wherein the 0 and the 10 represents the theorized maximum amount of the construct which is being measured. These are the basic format used for multiple questions, this phrase completion scale. Then semantic differential scale is a 7-point scale. The respondents are asked to rate on a 7-point scale on various attributes. Staple scale from +5 to -5. This is a unipolar 10-point rating scale. And Thurston scale is a technique that incorporates the intensity structure among the indicators. And mathematically derived scales, researchers infer respondents' evaluations mathematically. Two examples are multidimensional scaling and conjoint analysis, which we use in brand management and marketing management. So statistical inference, there are two types of statistical inferences. First is estimation of population parameters and hypothesis testing. So hypothesis testing is one of the most important tools of an application of statistics in real life problems. This is what actually we use in extensively in our research work for data analysis. So most often the decisions are required to be made about the population on the basis of the sample data that we have chosen from that particular population. Then once the sample data is ready, then statistical tests are applied in arriving at these decisions. So which are the ingredients, important ingredients for a statistical test? Are null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, level of significance, test statistics, and interpretation. So what are the steps of hypothesis testing? So what we do, first we identify the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. And null hypothesis is denoted by H0, alternative hypothesis is H1. So what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is a statement about, it's an assumption statement about your parameter, that's about the population. So how do you test this? By selecting the population sample from that population, collecting the data from the sample, and you are testing your hypothesis using the sample data. The hypothesis, now then you have an alternative hypothesis which is opposite to your H0, that is H1. Then you choose an alpha, that level of significance. What is that level of significance? That we'll discuss in the next subsequent slides. Normally this alpha is usually less than 10%. It is important because there will to reduce the errors. There are two types of errors that I will discuss. Then you select the statistic and determine its value from the sample data. Okay. This is called as observed value of your test statistic. So you have to calculate the statistic, can be sample mean, sample standard deviation, statistics, then is observed value of your test statistic. Then you compare these observed value with the critical value with the chosen alpha percentage. Then you make a decision. So if the test statistics falls within the critical region, you reject your null hypothesis in favor of alternative hypothesis. If the test statistics does not fall in that critical region, you conclude that there is not enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis. Types of error, as we discussed in the class slides, above slides. If you reject the null hypothesis when null hypothesis is true, that's a type 1 error. Then you accept a null hypothesis when actually the null hypothesis is false. That's a type 2 error. Now concept of p-value, alpha, that I was telling you. Alpha is normally the p-value is the smallest level for which the null hypothesis is rejected. Means that is the percentage of error that you can commit for while rejecting the null hypothesis. If the p-value is less than 0.01, then you reject the null hypothesis at only 1% level of significance. That's 1% probability that you might reject it. And if the p-value lies between 0.01 to 0.05, then you reject at 5% level of significance, 5% error. 95% of the time that will be the researcher will be right. And if the p-value is greater than 0.05, then you are accepting the H0 at 5% level of significance. So this is a probability that you are going to commit the error. So now the standard is 5% level of significance is normally we choose 95% of the time that you are at right while arriving at the decisions. So classification of multivariate model, how do you model classify your multivariate models? In the first slides only I said there is one called variable. dependent variables and independent variables, qualitative variables and quantitative variables. So some of the variables, if they are dependent on others, if it is yes, then you use a dependence methods. If it is no, then you use the independent methods, variables that you have chosen for your study. So how do you classify this multivariate analysis based on dependence methods? How many variables are dependent? If only one dependent variable is there, and if the data is metric, metric means scales are ratio and interval, non-metric scales are nominal and ordinal. If it is a metric, scales are ratio and interval, you use multiple regression. If one dependent variable, if the data is non-metric, the scales are nominal and ordinal, use the multiple discriminant analysis. Several dependent variables are there. If the data is metric, you use the multivariate analysis of variance MANOVA. If it is non-metric, you use the conjoint analysis. Then if it is multiple independent and dependent variables, sometimes you have multiple dependent variables as well as multiple independent variables, then you use the canonical analysis. So classification of interdependence methods. If the other inputs, if the independent methods, if they are inputs are metric, then if it is the metric, the scales ratio and interval, use a factor analysis, cluster analysis, and multi-dimensional scaling. If it is a non-metric with the scales are nominal and ordinal, you use the non-metric multi-dimensional scaling. So this is the first part of the inferential statistics. In my next session, I'll take up the second part of the inferential statistics. Thank you.